Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all and those watching on ITV and via live stream to our November 14th, 2023 regular meeting to order with all board members present. Tonight we have the Hoover High School Army JROTC Color Guard who will now present the colors. Please stand for the presentation of the colors. Trustee Cotoriano, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I would now like to make a motion to adopt today's agenda as published. Do we have a motion? Motion by Trustee Hazen and a second by Trustee Dr. Whitehurst-Payne. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. We're going to start with Trustee Lavender Williams.
Aye.
And Trustee Cotoriano.
Aye.
And all others, please vote electronically at this time. Okay, the motion passes unanimously with our student board members concurring.
Today's meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting that is conducted in public, and board members will not engage in a dialogue with members of the audience. Board Bylaw 1025 sets the time limit for public comment on agenda items at 10 minutes per side, pro and con, or 20 minutes total. Speakers will be able to provide testimony at the beginning of the appropriate agenda item or at the end of the meeting for non-agenda public comment. Please listen for your name to be called. Speakers are listed and called in the order received. When your name is called, please come to the podium to speak. Speakers participating via Zoom will be asked to unmute when their name is called. If you are unable to unmute yourself, we will call the next speaker. Please follow along with the agenda so that you know when your item is coming up for discussion. If you would like to sign up for in-person public comment, iPads are available in the back of the auditorium and in the lobby. Due to the number of non-agenda speakers who have signed up tonight, each non-agenda speaker will have 1 minute.
Thank you. General Counsel Green, do we have any reportable actions from today's closed session?
We do not.
Thank you. Dr. Jackson, are there any administrative assignments to report?
Thank you, President Bozzo. Yes, we have a few. This evening, I am proud to appoint the following. Principal, Hardy Elementary, Christy Aragon. Principal, Oak Park Elementary, Antoinette Curtis. Associate Principal, Correa Middle School, Deanne Denzian. Associate Principal, Rosa Parks Elementary School, Joanna Bielma. Senior Director, Instructional Support, assigned to support our students with disabilities, Jennifer Hugerhide. And Program Manager, Teaching and Learning, assigned to support our visual and performing arts, Candace Narlock. Those are the appointments. Join me with a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, and welcome to all of those individuals, or congratulations, I should say. At this time, I'd like our ASB representatives, Chloe Showerman from Kearney High School and Darius King from SCPA, to introduce themselves. They're going to share a little bit about themselves, what's going on at their schools, both academically and some of the fun things that are going on as well. So who wants to go first? Chloe? Okay.
All right. Good evening, Superintendent Jackson, members of the board, district employees, and guests. My name is Chloe Showerman, and I am the current Associated Student Body President at Kearney High School. Kearney High School has several things that make it unique, one of them being our small school structure. We have 4 small schools within our complex, each one focusing on different disciplines to help students find their individual niche by receiving hands-on experiences with real-world clients. At the Stanley E. Foster School of Engineering, Innovation, and Design, students use design thinking to complete projects. This year, EID students are pursuing certification in manufacturing at City College, which involves manufacturing and assembling an electric guitar. In the School of Biomedical Science and Technology, students are working with a water quality project where they craft devices and house water purification technology. And then in the School of College Connections, seniors are actively applying to universities and researching scholarship opportunities and financial aid. And of course, at my small school, Digital Media and Design, students are producing video and print media with community partners such as Dunn Edwards, the San Diego Central Library, and Friends of Teclode Canyon. In my own experience, I used our brand new $3.5 million studio to film videos related to eco-friendly approaches that Dunn Edwards uses to fabricate their paint. We also are very fortunate to have an amazing partnership with Mesa College, with over 600 students taking free college classes this year. When I started high school in the midst of the pandemic, I felt as though my hopes for the traditional high school experience were a bit out of reach, and so I joined my ASB sophomore year to recreate the atmosphere that had gone away with the isolation that the previous year had brought. As the now ASB president, I look back with pride at what this year's ASB and the previous ones have accomplished since COVID-19. And this year, we hosted our first homecoming dance off campus since 2019 at the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And we've had great student engagement with our pep rallies, our spirit weeks, and our monthly activities more than ever before. And a lot of that credit can go to the student leaders and amazing faculty that Kearney High School has. So it's my honor to report that Kearney High School is thriving, and it brings me no greater joy than to know that I was able to be a part of it. So ultimately, my greatest hope for Kearney's future is just to continue planting seeds where there's need for growth, to keep up our project-based learning, our client-centered approach, and to make this high school the experience that I wanted for the generations to come. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chloe, for that report, and it was a really nice balance between academics and more the fun side of what's going on at Kearney, and I hear such amazing things about Kearney High School, and we're really happy to have you here representing them this evening. I don't know if it's too early to put you on the spot, but we do like to ask, you said you're a senior?
Yeah, I'm a senior.
Okay, if you know kind of what you might be doing next year? Or?
Yeah, so my plans are, my top college right now is Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I'd like to pursue journalism and hopefully go on to broadcast journalism and like be a news anchor, work in a newsroom. I love writing and I like public speaking, so, you know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We need more good journalists.
You know, that's
In
one
the
way to
world.
give back, yeah, totally.
So, good, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Darius?
Hello, members of the board. My name is Darius King. I'm the executive ASB president at the San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts. My school is what you consider an atypical school because it follows a structure that's a little different from other schools. It's focused on the arts, and in addition to that, it also balances the rigorous academics that the school holds as well. My major at the school, I've gone here since the 6th grade, and I followed the path of the creative writing department. The creative writing department is a very small but strong department because with its low numbers, you're able to create those bonds with your peers much easier because you have such consistent time with them. Part of the requirements for the department is to turn yourself into a professional, so they'll require you to submit to things like the Young Arts Foundation. I submitted to that. It's an international arts contest. I got a merit award from it last year in novel writing, and they flew me out. Thank you. Thank you. They flew me and some other winners out to Miami, all expenses paid, to like an interdisciplinary lab where we got to meet with, collaborate with other artists. The school does very well with making sure that once we leave, we're ahead in every aspect, including the academics, so that we also have a partnership with like the College Career Readiness Pathway, where we're able to take city college classes that will get us further in college. Like a lot of our general education requirements have been passed. Along with that, our school has been chosen by the San Diego State University to be like, they're coming on our campus on Thursday to use our teachers as standards to progress their teaching ways. I, along with the rest of ASB, will be greeting them at the front gates as the face of the school, which I'm super excited to do because honestly, it's an honor to be represented as like the face of the school to such a well-known university. Some fun things going on. Our homecoming is actually this Saturday. It's a little late in the school year, but it's happening and it's going on. A long-term tradition at my school is called Juniors versus Seniors, where the juniors and seniors will go head-to-head in each of our artistic offs. Seniors are currently losing, but we're working on it right now. We won the musical theater off today, so I'm hoping we get back. We won the write-off as well, so hopefully we can get back onto that. The week is very spirit-packed. It creates, even though it's juniors versus seniors, I found over the years that at the end of it all, the juniors and seniors are even more bonded than they've ever been before. We also find ways to include the middle schoolers at our school and junior versus seniors, even though it's not part of their culture. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Darius, and that was also a very comprehensive report, and always love to see performances and all that SPCEA has to offer our students. You guys do amazing work, and you have an amazing principal
you.
supporting you. So again, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to share with us? Yeah. Yes.
About
Plans for the future?
I applied to the University of Southern California Early Action about a few weeks ago. The goal is public relations major. I'm a writer, creative writing department. I didn't want to do specifically writing. I wanted to expand my artistic palette by doing something a little more less creative but more political. So things about the social scene. So public relations and journalism and whatnot are things that I found interested in. So
Oh,
USC is the goal.
fantastic. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you'll do amazing. Yes. Okay, thank you to both Chloe and Darius for providing those reports. And Dr. Jackson, please provide your information report.
Thank you, President Bazo. I have 3 items I'd like to share. First, I'd like to start out with a celebration. This past Thursday, we had several of our students recognized by the Public Defender's Office along with the San Diego County in partnership. And they celebrated the 25 most remarkable teens for 2023. And those student names include some that we might be familiar with. Jacqueline Deonda from East Village, Jackie, as we know. Jackie has been here from East Village Middle College. Adelina Ramirez from San Diego High School. From Kearney, we do mention Kearney here. We have Aiden Groovy from Kearney EID. Eddie Garcia from Morris High School. Daphne Mayer from La Jolla High. Jabzi Solomon from UC High School. And our very own board trustee, Blessin Lavender Williams from Lincoln High School. And I do want to say thank you to Trustee Dr. Whitehurst Payne, as well as Dr. Aaron Richardson for attending and representing all of us on the leadership team. Thank you very, very much, and congratulations, Blessin. And Matthew was there. My apologies, Matthew. Thank you for representing me because I was not there. My apologies. Thank you. I also want to lift up, this past week, we launched as a district the Aspen Challenge. And the Aspen Challenge builds future leaders as it provides a space for our students to identify and develop and implement some of their thinking around some of our city's challenges, like homelessness, for example. And this is just a great opportunity that we've been provided, and all of our high schools are invited to participate in an 8-week competition. And they'll be working with community leaders, they'll be working with electeds to solve these critical problems in our city. And I want to say a special thank you to our Aspen Institute and the Bezos Family Foundation for partnering with us to inspire our students. And again, thank you, Dr. Richardson, for bringing this great opportunity to us, and thank you to all of our staff who are leading this effort and participating. And again, thank you, Dr. Whitehurst-Payne, for attending the kickoff. We appreciate it. And finally, I'd like to invite everyone to participate in our first volunteer appreciation celebration to be held on Parent Family Involvement Day, Thursday, November 16th, so that's this week, at 3:30 on the Ed Center lawn. A special recognition will be held for volunteers from Lincoln High School, Baker, Cadman, Edison, Florence, Hickman, Jonas Salk, and Miller Elementary Schools. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Next, we will hear item E1, Community Advisory Committee, CAC, for Special Education Semi-Annual Update to the Board and Data Report for students receiving special education services. Dr. Jackson, please introduce the item.
Yeah, President Bozzo, if I may, I know we adopted the agenda. Is it possible, given the fact that our chair of the CAC is not present yet,
Go to the
if
next
it's
one.
okay for the board to take up this item and to move it so that we can hear the DAC presentation first? I'm looking
Sure.
at Tom to see if I see Michael. Our chair is not present.
Okay.
There's a lot of traffic out there, I hear.
Limited parking.
Limited parking, okay.
Move on to the next slide.
Okay, I'm gonna talk to staff just here. Tom and Michael, are we prepared to move forward? Or are we okay moving forward without Scott? And then you can stretch it, it's. That'd be great. Okay, so I'd like
So
to
that-
invite Nicole DeWitt, our Executive Director of Special Ed, Nisi Watkins, and our Senior Executive Director of Thriving School Communities, Nicole DeWitt and Nisi Watkins. Thank you. And my apologies to the audience, this happens.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to share our presentation. So the purpose of our presentation is to highlight the collaborative efforts between the Special Ed Department and our Community Advisory Committee, also known as the CAC, as we share our efforts in improving instructional outcomes for our students with disabilities. Our focus is going to be on looking at our goals and how we're tracking and monitoring our goals for this specific subgroup. So we are, oh, our PowerPoint, sorry. I probably should wait for that. So we are aware that there are areas that limit our students with disabilities from being able to receive a diploma. And so tonight, our presentation is going to focus in on 3 areas: increasing our graduation rate for our students with disabilities, as well as decreasing our number of referrals for behavioral support interventions, and then also decreasing the number of families that go through our due process. So our first goal is to increase the graduation rate for our students with disabilities. Currently, that number is 67%. This year, we're looking to increase that to 70% by the end of this school year. Next slide. The slide that we're sharing with you here shows our progress over 7 years, from 2017 to 2023. And what we've noticed is that our students with disabilities are on an upward trend, showing that over the last 7 years, we have increased our overall graduation rate from 10.9%. But when we look a little bit deeper at specific student subgroups that have IEPs, we are noticing that our African-American students over this same 7-year period, unfortunately, have a 7.5 decrease in the overall graduation rate. Our Latinx students are showing an 11.5 increase, and our multilingual learners are showing a 3.9 increase. We still have a lot of work to do to improve the overall graduation rate for our students with disabilities. As you can see, we still have a 22.6 gap between our students with disabilities and their graduation rate and their peers that do not have IEPs. This next slide shows the number of students with disabilities who received a certificate of completion. So when we look at the school year 2019 compared to last year 22-23, we do show that we had about 42 less students who received a certificate of completion, and this is being attributed to the fact that some of our students on the more moderate side were receiving their instruction in the gen ed environment. So our goal is to increase the graduation rate for students with IEPs by participating in our meaningful graduation design process. The special ed department is going to be in collaboration with our Office of Graduation, where we plan to strengthen our continuum of services by increasing these students' ability to access gen ed standards, support with completion of coursework, and then we also plan to launch our essential pathway, diploma pathway, for our students in grades 9 through 12 who currently are able to take the California Alternative Assessment, also known as the CA. We also plan to provide evidence-based instruction that aligns with the Common Core connectors, and these Common Core connectors are also aligned with the state Common Core standards. Through these new courses, our students with disabilities in the Mod Severe environment will be able to meet the minimum state graduation requirement. Once the design process is complete, we plan to provide sites with coursework options as well as training around how they can implement these new courses in the 24-25 school year. And normally Scott would be here to share his thoughts on what I just mentioned, and so we'll give him that opportunity when he gets here. Our second goal is around decreasing behavior support referrals by 5% by the end of this school year. As we know, there are certain behaviors that get in the way of our students being able to access their instruction. And so these behaviors can lead to office referrals, suspensions, as well as expulsions. And so we know that these challenges, referrals, suspensions, and expulsions, also get in the way of students being able to access their diploma or keeping them on that diploma-bound track. And then I'll turn it over to Nicole to share a little bit more information about our goal number 2.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. So when you take a look at this slide, you'll notice prior to the Freedom Summer 20 resolution, our responses to behavior were mainly punitive and exclusionary. So this ultimately led to our district being designated as significantly disproportionate in issuing in-school and out-of-school suspensions for our African American students who received a risk ratio of 3 points higher than their peers over the course of 3 consecutive years, as you can see in the top left corner. This designation of significant disproportionality has given us the opportunity to implement targeted strategies at focus schools listed on the right and with a select group of focus students listed on the left. On this slide, you can see the details for each strategy, such as restorative practices, multi-tiered systems of support, and parent engagement, as well as the measurable impacts we hope each strategy will have for these focus students beginning now through September 30th of 2024. At this moment in time, we are in the implementation phase for these services, but we will start collecting impact data over the next few weeks to include in our next quarterly report. So although the strategies mentioned are to address our significant disproportionality mainly at the middle and high school levels, we know that exclusionary practices happen much earlier in a child's education, and how we respond to those behaviors has a lasting impact. Here you can see the number of requests we received for behavior support collaborations over the past 5 years, with the highest amount at 587 during the 22-23 school year. When we drill down to where the requests are mostly occurring, we see the highest number in UTK and kinder classes. For the 23-24 school year, we have already received 105 requests in UTK and kinder classes, with 45% of those requests for supports with our students with disabilities and 64% for our BIPOC students. So there's really two assumptions we can make when looking at this data: that our UTK and kinder staff need more training to support students transitioning from our EXI program into these general education settings, and that our responses need to consider the cultural backgrounds of our students and what assets they bring into these spaces. So we feel the biggest impact we can make in this area is providing more professional learning for our educators, inclusive of classroom teachers and paraprofessionals. However, when we look at last year's attendance for professional learning, we see the lowest number of attendees when the professional learning was targeted to one group of educators, such as our paraprofessionals. So how do we change this, given that these folks are side by side with our students every day? Over the next 3 years, our goal is to focus on targeted training paired with side-by-side coaching for our paraprofessionals, EXI educators, and UTK teachers, to increase participation, engagement, and implementation of de-escalation and inclusive practices. We know that professional learning sessions are not enough to ignite change, and that pulling up alongside our educators will help them implement these practices with fidelity and consistency.
Thank you, Nicole. Just checking to see if Mr. Scott was here. So we'll continue on with our last goal. So our last goal is around decreasing the number of families that end up in due process. And so with this goal, we're looking to decrease the number of alternative dispute resolution, also known or referred to as our ADR team. This year, we're hoping to decrease that by 2%, which is about 3 less filings for this year. And so our current reality is that our due process cases continue to increase. As you can see, from 2018 to 2023, we ended with about 182 due process cases, which means we weren't able to work it out at the site level with our families. Our alternative dispute resolution team is new. They just started in the school year 2021. But last year, our ADR team was able to respond to about 137 referrals from both our parents and our school IEP teams. Our parents and our IEP teams will often refer to our ADR team because maybe there was some type of a challenge or concern with regards to the IEP process, maybe around the offer of FAPE, free appropriate public education, the support hours, or even the students' progress. And so from those 137 referrals last year, our ADR team was able to lead 122 of those to some level of resolution and consent to the offer of FAPE from our families. Unfortunately, 15 of those went on, those referrals that started with ADR went on to due process. So 15 might seem like a small number when you think about the 107, but that means that we have 15 families that ended up in due process, to where unfortunately the district will probably end up having to settle. And it also ultimately means that we weren't able to resolve a situation at the site level with our families, which is what our ultimate goal is. So our current reality is that our platforms for communication at this point are more reactive than proactive. So our goal is to enhance our parent engagement, strengthen our communication, and our ADR process, our alternative dispute resolution process, where we plan to provide a forum for parents to provide us feedback around their experience and their involvement in the IEP process. So we want to collect data from our families who contact our ADR team, who also go to due process, as well as contact our CAC, our Community Advisory Committee. We want to collect this data. So we're looking to create a structured survey for families as they're in the IEP process or right after their IEP meetings, where we want to collect the data. We want to gain insight as to the parents' perspectives in that IEP process. And then we're going to be looking for trends and patterns to their responses so that we can find opportunities to, one, provide more meaningful participation for our families, and then maybe also provide IEP training for both our families as well as our school sites. And then Scott would be here. I'll put in his plug for this part. He's hoping to share that our Superintendent, Dr. Lamont, and our area soups are going to be joining us, even in a hybrid, I think, Zoom model on December 7th. So he wanted to make sure everybody knew to join us for that meeting. Thank you.
Before you go, is it possible to speak on behalf of Scott on a few slides? I have a feeling you may not say it in the way that he might say it, but I think it would be important for his voice to be heard and the voice of our parents that he represents and that we represent. So I think there are key points here that Scott wanted to share. If you don't mind sharing that, and then at least the board gets to hear his perspective on these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, definitely don't want to say that I'm 100% accurately reflecting, but based on some of the conversations that we had in developing this presentation, we do know of some of the existing concerns related to some of these goals. So starting with the graduation rates, there still is some ongoing need to standardize our moderate severe curriculum. And making sure that our moderate severe curriculum does line up with our guaranteed and viable curriculum that we offer in our general education settings. In particular, when we're talking about our essential diploma that is now mandated by the state, we do need to make sure that we're looking at our GVC as well as those core content connectors released by the state, and that we're creating courses for students to access that particular curriculum. Now, the way that that will roll out could be different at each school site depending on what the needs are of the students and the families. So that is something that's going to be an ongoing process of development. Again, prototyping that curriculum for these new courses and making adjustments and changes as we go along. And then in addition to that, I know that Scott and our CAC families have been strong advocates for a state minimum diploma that can be offered to any of our special education students. The essential diploma is for a specific population of students that qualify for that California alternative assessment. So it's not something that every special education student can access. So I know the CAC has been strong advocates for some sort of waiver that would allow students with IEPs to earn a diploma by meeting the state minimum graduation requirements. So I know that's very important to them. And then in regards to the graduation data, you know, obviously having a 22% gap between our overall graduation rate and the graduation rate of our students receiving special education services is not okay. And so we really do need to take a look at that equity and access piece for our students receiving special education service to make sure that they not only have access to the general education curriculum for graduation purposes, but that they can be successful and that they have the targeted supports that they need in order to successfully pass that coursework. And then I think in regards to the significant disproportionality, you know, one thing that we did discuss and was highlighted in the data is that cultural concern of seeing a lot more exclusionary practices with our BIPOC students. I think if we were to drill down even more, we would see our African American students with IEPs having a significant amount of suspensions and expulsions issues. So there is definitely some cultural concerns still with our behavior responses and our behavior practices. And I know one thing that Scott would love to advocate for is these strategies that we're utilizing in our significant disproportionality plan how do we see the impact of those strategies, which ones are the most successful, and then expand that throughout the district, because we do have a small subset of focused schools and focused students. So based off of the work we do here with the plan, how do we leverage those high impact strategies and expand those district-wide? So I know that's definitely a concern of what our capacity and bandwidth is for doing that.
And then the last piece in regards to BSR support, Scott is also hoping that while we're planning to hone our training in on our paraprofessionals, he's hoping that we'll also expand that training to our general ed teachers because they are also working with our students with IEPs, especially when it comes to behavior. So he's definitely hoping that we're planning to have some trainings for our gen ed teachers alongside our ed specialists. So that is definitely one of his concerns also.
Thank you very much. And I think we're going to move on to speakers, so, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I have, for public testimony on item E1, we have 5 minutes allotted to one group of individuals. It's Raquel Foster, Kim Carpenter, Kelly Hagan, and other SDUSD staff. And you'll have 5 minutes total for this portion.
Thank you. I'm Kimberly Carpenter. I teach at Bell Middle School, and I live near Oak Park Elementary School. Last year, Mrs. Whitehurst Payne was kind enough to say that she hoped that if there were issues at school sites, we'd come and let the board know, because sometimes it's difficult to have school site issues make it to you guys. Today, we are a group of educators, and there are many of us who could not be here tonight because we have small children at home, who are here to discuss our concerns around special education. In the spring of '23, the board asked if there were any compliance concerns, and the response of the previous director was saying, well, yes, SDSU was out of compliance due to parent absences and not attending IEP meetings. This is simply untrue. We are out of compliance because we are understaffed. Not only do we have many open vacancies, but we do not have enough support staff to provide the hours that are in children's IEPs. If you're worried about why we keep having due process meetings, perhaps that's something to take into consideration. For example, last year, I have 20 kids on my mild moderate caseload. 16 of them were at least 4 hours a week short on the services they were supposed to be getting. Similarly, we have done away with applied classes that support our lowest students. Half of my caseload reads at sixth grade, in sixth grade at the first grade level, yet we cannot offer applied classes to support those needs. We expect them to be successful in general education English classes. We do not have enough paras. We do not look at hours on kids' IEPs when we decide who we're assigning to school sites. Ed specialists are asked to both case manage, that is, conduct IEPs and do all the testing and so forth, but to run into classes to try to cover these support hours all at the same time within the same hour. There are no hours allotted to complete the paperwork that we need to do and to carry out the assessments that are legally required. We have attached and have sent to you a document listing some of our concerns from a variety of special educators around the district. But seriously, if you want to support our special ed kids and address the problems with due process, you have to provide enough staff in order to educate our children. They deserve it.
Hi, my name is Rachel Foster, and I'm an ed specialist over at Crawford High School, and I just wanted to piggyback off of what was just recently said. the last how many years me working at Crawford High School. It's the first time ever that I've experienced, whether I was working at an elementary school in another district or a middle school in another district, but when I came here to San Diego Unified as a high school teacher, I've never experienced such low gaps in instruction. To be teaching 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade students, and they're reading at a first grade and second grade level, and now I don't have the applied classes that I need to teach them. I don't know how I'm supposed to meet those requirements and allow those children to go into the general education system where I am not able to even provide them with the phonics instruction, also the reading instruction, the skills that they need, the writing instruction, and I'm supposed to support them in their general education classes. I'm allotted 30 minutes for each one of the classes that I do currently teach at the multi-skills course that I'm now allowed to have on my campus. I don't know how I'm supposed to meet those needs and requirements in only 30 minutes per class period when these kids have more than 9 years of a gap of instruction. And I don't understand why our school district has done away with the applied classes that support the needs of these kids. I don't know how I'm supposed to do it. And then with the lack of paras and staff, I have classes where I don't even have anyone to help support me, which it's fine if my class size is small, but I'm supposed to help them in their general education classes as well. So if I have 12 students in my class, they all have different teachers, they all have different assignments, and somehow I'm supposed to bounce around between 12 kids in that class period to figure out how to provide the instruction, the supports that I need. I don't know how I'm supposed to do it. We need these applied classes back in the school district immediately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have any trustees who have questions or wish to discuss this item? Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, so I wonder, Nisi or Nicole, could you just help us understand the issue that's just been raised about applied classes?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few years ago, it was actually probably several years ago now, because it's back when I was a site principal, there was a movement to no longer offer applied classes, specifically for our students that fell into the mild moderate category, because our applied classes were not meeting graduation requirements or A through G college admission requirements. So at that time, there was a directive given to phase out applied classes and to make sure that students had access to general education coursework so that they could fulfill their graduation requirements and also fulfill college admissions requirements. I will say that what they're mentioning about a lack of continuum of services is definitely an issue and is a focus area of Dr. Watkins and myself, because we cannot just have one end and another end, right? We have students that are all along this spectrum and that need a lot of targeted and individualized support. So that's something that we are hoping to collaborate with our school site administrators and our classroom educators on what that continuum of services could look like, so that we can make sure that our students are successful when they are entering the general education setting.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Oh. We might have some other questions coming up. Any other questions? Trustee Hazen.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the commitment to reducing due process filings. It's something that I hear a lot about in the community and from families, so really appreciate our work in that area. One of the things I'm wondering about, and just looking for clarity, so I know it says the goal is to decrease due process filings by 2%, or the number of ADR referrals resulting in due process filings. What is that number? So I guess what I'm unclear, so then we share data about 15 ADR referrals resulted in due process filings, so are we saying, and here it says 3 fewer, so we're talking about 12, or is it of the total number of due process filings, we're aiming to have 3 fewer? Because those are two.
Yes, so for last year, we had 137 due process, ADR referrals, and from that number, unfortunately, 15 of them went on to due process. And so from that 15, we're hoping to decrease this year by 3 less. So yes, we're hoping to have no more than 12 or less this year.
Great, okay, because I just wanted to make sure it wasn't of that, the larger number, so.
Of the 15.
Of the 15, I see, thank you. And one of my other questions, so I know we said that we're targeting professional development at specific groups of educators based on behavior support requests. But kindergarten teachers weren't on that list, yet the graph showed the highest number of these requests was kindergarten teachers. So I'm curious about why.
That's a great question. So I think what we're experiencing right now, what we're anticipating is that when students are in our XE program and they become age eligible for UTK, there is a decision that families need to make around whether they're going to keep their child in the XE program or move them into the UTK program. And if they opt not to move them into the UTK program, then they would go into kinder after that. So I think what we're trying to do is focus on what's happening with the XE program and what that transition is out of the XE program into UTK or kinder. So really trying to look at our XE educators and providing them professional development, because that could potentially then lead to better outcomes when they transition into the kinder setting.
Okay, so even though kindergarten teachers are disproportionately impacted by these behavioral issues, we think we're going to get ahead of it so that kindergarten teachers will no longer see those high numbers?
Well, we're really looking at how we're preparing our students that are in the XE program in order to enter into those general education settings. So whether entering into those general education settings at the UTK or the kinder level, like looking to see what is that successful transition at either one of those grade levels. So I think there's been some concerns in the past around the support for our XE educators. And really figuring out like what that supportive transition is from XE into general education. So our main focus is on providing professional learning and support for our XE educators to then hopefully provide a smoother transition into UTK and kinder classes.
So is the goal then that we would see fewer of the behavior support requests by kindergarten teachers in the future?
Correct.
Thank you. And then the other thing I'm wondering, in terms of the due process goals and wanting to see fewer filings, do we have longer-term goals? So one of the things we're working on as a board is really thinking about 5-year, right, long-term goals, recognizing that change takes time. So do we have longer-term goals more than just a year for where we'd like to see the number of filings?
Yes, so that's the part where I mentioned that we're planning to shore up our ADR process, our alternative dispute resolution process. So it is a new team, a new department, but we plan to do more training and professional development for that specific team so that when they are out at sites, supporting the sites and the parents. Oh, I thought.
Your partner in crime is here.
I thought I saw Scott come in and I didn't see him. So yes, we are planning, we do have a long-term plan also, but our goal is an immediate plan to try to decrease the number of filings in due process by the end of this year, but with our hopes that through this collaboration with our ADR team and our site teams, that we can decrease that number even more from the 182 last year to even less.
It would be great to see, next time you come back to us, because I know we have
Go
multiple
ahead.
presentations, it would be wonderful to know what we're aiming for over that longer term.
Exactly. I was just about to say, we'll work together to identify
you.
that.
Yes, absolutely.
And thank you for all the work.
And Scott, welcome. We, the team spoke on your behalf,
I appreciate that, but I'll, I assume you guys were at the end.
Do we, Trustee
I
Pedersen,
missed everything.
I think Sharon had her hand up too,
Oh,
but I'll very briefly.
go ahead.
This is somewhat slightly adjacent, but it's clearly an inference from the folks that gave testimony just now. Where are we in terms, I know for a long time now, we've targeted special education teachers as a goal to increase it. Where are we in terms of that shortage that we've heard so much about over the last several years?
So, nationwide, there's a shortage in special education staffing, whether we're talking about classroom educators or para-educators, which was mentioned earlier. So we were able to do some significant shifts during the month of October to try to match educators to caseloads, right? So trying to move our educators to areas where there were more students. So we were successful in moving some educators to meet the needs of students, but again, we are still actively in the recruiting process and also leaning into our partnerships with our local universities to have interns that can help provide services to students. So we are very actively still working on filling those gaps. We are also looking just at our processes for staffing in the future when we look ahead to 24-25 and figuring out ways where we can revisit enrollment throughout the year to help better navigate or predict what those numbers might be the following year. So our past practice has really just been, let's look at the projected enrollment during our budget season, which is usually in January, and that's how we staff. But now we're looking at implementing a process where we revisit those enrollment numbers at the end of March and then again at the end of July so that we can make some needed adjustments before the school year opens so it's less disruptive for staff and also less disruptive for students.
Thank you, Trustee Pedersen. Did you want to add something? Sorry, Scott. Oh, okay, yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Dr. Weiss,
I just wanted to say so far, I've really appreciated the transparency that you all have brought to this. You've been honest that we do have some issues, and I do appreciate staff even letting us know. It's confirming what you know and what superintendent knows, and it would just be helpful to us if you guys would just give us a follow-up on what happened in relationship to what Trustee Patterson just stated. But I appreciate your being honest with us and letting us know where there are issues. And Superintendent and I have gone back and forth about some of the schools, so we know about them. And at least I do feel that you are working on it. I know you've been here, 6 months, if that long? 4 months? Okay. So we really appreciate you guys coming together to identify the problem. And I would respond to Vice President and say that the goal is 0. It's always 0 with the ADRs. Am I right? The sooner we get there, the better, so.
Just to, Scott, we did cover the GVC and the curriculum concerns that you shared, and we share that same concern. Nicole shared the reality in terms of rethinking a path for meaningful diploma for our students, particular Mild students, and also thinking about our grad rates. So I don't know if you want to comment on any of that, but she did cover that, and she covered the other points in the PowerPoint.
Sure.
So.
I'll try to be quick.
Thank you.
Is it possible to pull up the PowerPoints again? Do I have a clicker or anything? All right, I'll start a brief introduction. I apologize to the board members. In my defense, I've never been called before 7 o'clock, so I thought I was still early. Again, my name is Scott Sodi. I'm the chair of the Community Advisory Committee for Special Education. I have 2 children in the district, 5th and a 3rd grader at Bay Park Elementary. And my youngest is visually impaired. The Community Advisory Committee for Special Education represents around 17,000 students in the district, as well as their families, to advocate for improvements in special education services and students receiving those services. I did hear Trustee Hazen talk about the long-term goals. I believe the long-term goal for graduation rate previously was 86, increase it to 86%. So clearly we're, still far off from that, that long-term goal. The graduation rate is increasing, I suppose. The concern that we have is that that's been propped up a little bit by the waivers that have been granted previously by the board. I believe in the Meaningful Graduation Work Group, which I'm a part of, that we're currently looking at those students that are not on track to graduate, and that's about 350 or so students with disabilities that are still not on track to graduate that would otherwise qualify for the waivers. So I would advocate for the board looking at that to again, not try to punish these students who experienced the pandemic as well. The certificate of completion data, I did see some data that was interesting, which I'd like to dig further into at some other time, but basically that while the numbers of people receiving the certificate of completion is going down, but that there are those receiving a certificate of completion that their disability category doesn't necessarily indicate that they should qualify, that they should be receiving a certificate of completion. They should actually be receiving a diploma instead of the certificate of completion. That was some preliminary data, but certainly something to look into. The essential pathway is certainly going to be an important part of this, as well as the I'll say the meaningful graduation work that's being done. That I've been a part of that since last year, and there's a lot of excellent work being done through that, and would certainly encourage to approve any recommendations coming out of that work group to improve outcomes, not just for students with disabilities, but for also all students that are in the district. My concern about the essential diploma is that I believe it is that current sophomores are eligible for the essential pathway diploma. However, the curriculum that goes along with it and the classes that they need to enroll in are not yet developed. And so we're sort of building the railroad track as the train is speeding down the road. So that is certainly going to be an issue. Yeah, good. Covered all that. And again, with that, it's not just the classes, but it's also the adaptations of the Mod Severe Guaranteed Viable Curriculum. That work was supposed to have been completed, I believe, January in 2021. So not only is it still not been completed, it's still, it's not there. So again, I don't understand, or it's a fundamental problem of how are we rolling out this pathway that doesn't have classes, that doesn't have curriculum, and it's all just being developed on the fly. Behaviors, I would, again, like to dig further into this. This is something that we want to be looking at, of what the results of the CSACE plan for the district is. I've yet to see much data about how it's actually improving things, but if it is working, certainly rolling it out to the rest of the district would be good. I would point out that the only reason that I would point out that we are currently out of significant disproportionality for discipline, but that's really, I think, because that we're looking at 2020 data and reporting that. And so not a lot of suspensions when we were online, I would hope. So that's my concern with that, is that we're going to be right back here. But hopefully what's being implemented is actually having an impact. Yeah, so it's the 2020 data there. The professional learning piece, I'd like to see an increase in the general education staff participating in these trainings. The general education staff needs to be accountable and responsible for the students that are in their classrooms, and we can't just have it be, that's a special ed problem, or that's not my job. These are your students, and you therefore need to teach them. And that is, and if you need strategies and training in order to figure out how to do that, then take advantage of what's being offered. And I believe last year or last spring there was one of the biggest issues was the assessments that were out of compliance. I believe at one time it was about 800 assessments that were overdue and out of compliance. I congratulate the team for reducing that number down to, I think it's 20 or so now. So it's very, very good that the assessments have been done. Unfortunately, the problem is staffing. There's not necessarily spots in a place that, you know, families actually want to go. My numbers, I'm remembering, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe we did about 1,600 assessments last year, and only 800 students are enrolled in the program. So there's a vast gap and I'd really like to know why that is. Is it because the assessments took too long to do? Is it because it's only offered on a half-day program? Is it because they have to travel for, you know, be on a bus for an hour each way so that their child receives services, or do they have daycare already set up? We see a lot of behavior problems. This is the behavioral support resources that the referrals. You see very little in early childhood special education because presumably the staff knows how to manage the behaviors that you're seeing. But then if the child is not receiving services in that early childhood special education, we see an uptick when they eventually get to UTK and kindergarten, such that that they then learn what the behaviors are. But if they're not in early childhood special education receiving those services, then you're going to continue seeing that uptick. I'd also like to point out that it would be good to enroll people and, you know, increase enrollment numbers across the board. Yeah, due process cases. Obviously, as Dr. Whitehurst-Payne said, zero is a good number to have zero. I think that the ADR program is off to a good start, but needs to be vastly, you know, increased and improved, such that, you know, speaking as a lawyer, I wouldn't mind putting the education lawyers out of business, right? Like if it's not necessary, if there's a robust alternative dispute resolution program that is trusted by parents and staff, that it would reduce or eliminate any due process filings and save the district a whole bunch of money that is already spent on those things. Plugs for our next meeting. Our next meeting is December 7th. Superintendent Jackson will be present at somehow, Zoom. Unfortunately, not in person. So, but we're trying to increase attendance and membership at our meetings. So we are going out to school sites as opposed to just being at Ballard Center to try and meet families where they are. Our last meeting was at Lincoln Memorial. Our prior one was Logan Memorial. Sorry, long day. Lincoln and then Logan Memorial. So we're going out to a couple other school sites for the remainder of the year. And so I believe that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Thank you to Scott, Nisi, and Nicole. Thank you. Appreciate you. Oh, well, sorry, we have one last question.
I had a really quick question. I appreciate all the clarifications. It answered definitely a few of my questions. When I look at the goals, the first thing that I noticed was they're all goals for the class of 2024, 23, 24 school year, which, I mean, if we can get this done now, that's amazing. The other thing is that I have wonderings about, I'm there in the Designing for a Meaningful Graduation. We're thinking very big picture, and so I don't see that making meaningful change, especially in this school year. Of course, there's many other things that I don't totally know the full picture of, and you guys are the experts. So can you kind of walk me through where that 23, 24 number came from? I mean, is a 70% graduation rate achievable within, 6 months, 7 months?
Thank you for that question. So if you looked at the historic graduation trends, we tend to have like a 2% increase year over year. So if you look at that first graph for our students with disabilities, because we've had a 10.9% increase over the past 7 years. So that's kind of where we got that particular number. But I do think in reference to what we were talking about earlier and I know Scott was advocating earlier as well, is just what are our options for students with IEPs for this particular class. I think we still are exploring that and figuring out what the best way is to support those students because as Scott mentioned, they do still have lasting impacts from COVID. And during that time, there were students that maybe were not receiving the services that were needed because we were in an online format, or maybe some things changed. We do know a lot of our students faced a lot of mental health challenges during that time, which also impeded them having access to services as well as coursework. So we are still actively looking into what are some options for our students in order to meet that goal.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, next we will hear item E2, which is the District Advisory Council for Compensatory Education Semi-Annual Update to the Board. Dr. Jackson, please introduce the item.
Thank you, and thank you again, Nicole and Nisi. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Christopher Troll, our chairperson, Michael Kozma, our first vice chair, and we also have Tom Liberto here who will be presenting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Board President Bozzo, Vice President Hazen, Board Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Jackson, district staff, families, and students, of course, while we're all here. My name is Dr. Crystal Troll, and I'm the chair of the DAC, the District Advisory Committee for Compensatory Education. I'm also the DAC rep for 3 of the school site councils where my 3 kids attend school here in San Diego Unified. And I'm delighted to co-present our update to you with Tom Liberto as well as Michael Kozma. Our other team consists of Mrs. Gonzalez, who is our second vice chair. She's a member of the I-High and Roosevelt SSC. She couldn't be here this evening, but she really wanted to be. And we have another member of our team, Debbie Hedgren, who serves on the Valencia Park SSC and is our Title I representative on the executive board. I have to just take a moment to express my gratefulness to Michael Kozma. I may cry, but he's our first vice chair, a senior at University City High School. Michael, he's stepping down from his role this year as first vice chair. He's got a lot of things on his plate as a senior and moving on to bigger and better things after school. And I just want to acknowledge his numerous contributions to the DAC over the past 2 years. He was, I got to keep it together here. He was instrumental in creating the glossary of terms, which identifies all those acronyms that we hear, the EduSpeak for the common person. It helps us understand what we're talking about. He took over and revitalized the Take It to Your SSC document, which is a resource for our SSC members. He served on the bylaws committee. He chaired the LCAP committee. He knows the LCAP inside and out. But I have to say, it's really not what he's done that's made him an amazing executive board member and friend, but who he is. He has consistently acted with humility, integrity, and a laser focus on the work of the DAC, and he's been an important part of everything that we've accomplished. And I'm going to miss you, Michael, as my partner in this work, but I know that you're always with us. So I just want to thank you, Michael, for everything that you've done. So I just had to do that because he's so special. Okay, that was just the introduction slide. So next slide, please. Oh, I'm doing it. Oh, yeah, okay, great, perfect. I got the power. Okay, so here's just an agenda of where we're gonna go today for our presentation. We're gonna talk a little bit about our purpose. As usual, we like to remind folks some updates since May and some planning priorities that we have coming up, and we have a couple of requests, and then just show our appreciation. Okay, so the purpose of the DAC, you all know, and for those who may be unaware, the purpose of our work is to assemble a group of school site council members, parents, students, staff, and community members that advise all San Diego Unified School Site Councils, SSCs, with a focus on the effective use of state and federal compensatory funding to support all students with an emphasis on students who are foster youth, low-income, English learners, and homeless. We provide and encourage the use of quantitative and qualitative data to ensure equity in student learning across the district. So those are our marching orders. That's what we're here to do. So, you know, we've done a lot, but there's still more work to do. So let's reflect a little bit on what we've done over the past few years. We've seen gains in meeting attendance and focus on topics in our meetings. We've made some progress in strengthening communication and with the DAC body and along with each SSC by providing some helpful resources. We've created the landing page, which is this one-stop shop of everything you need to know about participating in the DAC as well as on the SSC. Michael created this glossary of terms for the acronyms, and we've made a commitment to ensuring that the DAC represents all schools, adding the Title I position, updating our bylaws for more inclusive language, and inviting all SSC members to participate in our work. So while we've accomplished a lot, there's still more that we can do to support our DAC body. Our work is not done, and we'll share with you a little later on what that is. But first, we'll have Michael come up and share the updates since we were here last in May.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I cannot stress how much I've appreciated your mentorship and friendship, and think that the DAC, you're an invaluable resource to the DAC, so thank you so much. We did just reflect on some of the longer term accomplishments that we've made, but since we last saw you in May, we have made even more positive changes. The first being the use of polls after presentations in our meetings to gauge how relevant information is to our SSCs. This is not information that's shared with the presenters, nor is it meant to gauge how high quality of a presentation it is. It is merely meant for us to help identify what our SSCs need the most from our DAC meetings. We have also revised our meeting agendas based on our body's feedback to support our body more. So the two main changes that we've made are starting earlier, which is aligned with our body's schedules better, and then also readjusting what our agendas look like. So we now have informational segments closer to the beginning of the meeting. We have voting items in the middle so that quorum can be established, and then a Q&A session and district partner presentations closer to the end of the meeting. So if people had to step off, it would not be the end of the world. We were able to have a summer planning meeting a few months ago where we were able to identify our priorities for the 2023-24 school year. We'll talk about these more later, but the three focuses are increasing student engagement, both on SSCs and the DAC, increasing attendance at our meetings, especially with Title I schools, and creating a data index. You're going to see the data index referenced multiple times throughout this presentation. Very briefly, the data index is meant to be a centralized resource for all data that is available in the district for SSC members. Thinking about standardized testing, the California Healthy Kids Survey, among other data sources, but it will not be limited just to SSCs. This is a resource we plan on sharing with all committees around San Diego Unified so they can easily access the data that they should be using. In terms of our diversity, inclusion, and representation, we were able to approve our bylaws. This has definitely been a running theme in our presentations to the board. We got there. We did get there. We made our language far more accessible, especially by clearing up confusing processes that the DAC doesn't even necessarily use anymore, and also making our Title I representative position an elected position, not an appointed position, so that our body has the most influence on making sure we are focused on our Title I schools. And then, as always, the LCAP is another one of our major focuses, so we have been working with our district partners to identify workshops and opportunities for parent feedback in the next iteration of the LCAP.
Hello, good evening, and good to see you all again. Thank you for the time. We always try to call out some goals. Superintendent Jackson and I, when this process first started a few years ago, really called out some goals that we thought would have some impacts, and there's a lot deeper than what you're going to see here today. But if you remember when we were here a few months ago, we met all of our goals except for I think one, and we were very excited about that. So these are the next steps of the goals, and they're a little bit different. We didn't want to replicate what we were already doing well. We feel like the progress will keep going in those areas, so we're focusing on others. The first one is the same though, goal one, and it's the roles and responsibilities training to all 135 Title I schools. Now, members are elected on a 2-year basis, and so that is a 2-year goal. Over a 2-year span, our goal is to get to 100% of our Title I schools actually in one of their SSC meetings, giving them the roles and responsibilities training so they understand what their role is and how they can make the largest impact. And so last year, at halfway point, we were at 45%, so I have no reason to think we will not make that 100% by the end of this year. Goal 2 and Goal 2B, 2A and 2B, are around attendance. And I have to put a disclaimer. Sometimes when you put attendance up there, we don't want anyone to think it's, oh, they're just checking off a box, they got more people. We firmly believe that if people will attend at a higher rate, the information that they're going to get, the connectedness to the information and the processes that we're trying to get them to replicate at their school sites will have an impact on student achievement. And so those two goals are around attendance, but it's much more than that. And so the first one is 100% of all sites will have a representative attend at least one DAC meeting. So we're meeting online. We don't think it's too much to ask, and we hope if they come to one, they'll say, hey, that was pretty good. We want to come to more. And so we're measuring how many of our sites have somebody at least one DAC, whereas 2B is a little bit more aggressive, and we would like to measure how many of our school sites have someone attend 7 of the 9 throughout the year. And so we really are trying to increase, especially our Title I schools. There is an incentive connected to Goal 2B. There will be some sort of gift to the school, like $100 towards their school library, if they meet that goal. And so we're watching that one very closely. And then the last one, Goal 3, is all sites, school site councils will turn in, and we're still calculating all of these in my office, their SSC rosters. If you recall, without a legal SSC roster that's approved by the district saying they're in parity and so on and so forth, they can't conduct business. So it's really important for us to get that in early. Last year, we measured just Title I schools, and I think we were at 96. There's a glare, I can't see that. This 98, thank you. And now we're going to be measuring all schools. And the reason is because we don't want a non-Title I school to say, DAC isn't for me. We've got many schools that go in and out of Title I status. We've seen that happen over the past couple of years. So just because they're out of Title I status, we don't want them to stay away from the DAC. And quite honestly, even if they never get back into the Title I, the procedures and the things that we're putting in place is good at any school. And so we're going to start measuring on the whole district rather than just the Title Is. Those are our goals. We look forward to coming back and giving you good news on those in the future presentation.
Okay, so looking forward, 23 and 24 year, our priorities, we're going to present some attendance data, but also just to tell you where our priorities are. Resources and tools, we're working on developing a timeline for SSCs to help them plan their agendas, as well as the data index, as we mentioned before, which I think will be an amazing resource, as well as encouraging the strong SSC relationships with, at the school site level, as well as with the DAC. So working on those. Engagement, we really want students to be a part of our work at the DAC. We want to encourage SSC. We talked a little bit about that last time. We want to encourage them to be part of their SSCs. We're trying to convey the why. Why would somebody want to be on the SSC? So we're also working with area superintendents to, as well as district leadership, to help principals to think of ways to recruit and identify students at the middle and high school level, because the elementary, because of regulations, don't allow students on the SSC, but middle schools and high schools have that opportunity to opt for that framework. So it's identifying barriers. Are the meetings after school? If students have sports, are they in the morning? What are the barriers for participation to help them understand how to get these students on? Because as we see, we have some amazing students in this district. So we want to be able to help them develop their leadership skills and critical thinking skills as well. So engagement, attendance is one of our goals, as Tom mentioned. I have a couple slides to show you with graphs. So, you know, we continue to see high rates of attendance and participation, as well as meeting quorum. And so this first chart, what it illustrates is overall DAC meeting by cluster. So all of the schools who are part of the DAC. So this represents all of the schools within a cluster that attended at least one meeting. So for example, we see the Henry cluster, we have 82%, means that 82% of all the schools in that cluster attended at least one meeting. Now we have another data point, another layer to kind of compare. We see, as in the previous slide, we see the blue bar is attending at least one or more meeting, and then we move on to that orange bar, which is 4 or more meetings. So we see a drop in some of these clusters. So they're making it to 1 meeting. It'd be great if they come to 4 because we have 9 total throughout the year. And, you know, 1 meeting's great, but, you know, the more that they come to, the more stronger they feel like they can bring the information back. As with students, you know, when we have students in seats, they're learning. They're able to access information. They're able to think about the material that they're learning. Same goes for DAC. So, so we're looking at this data point. Okay, so now, because not all schools are Title I, not all schools have those funds, we're going to look a little deeper into some of the attendance data based on Title I versus non-Title I schools during the last academic year. So we see a side-by-side comparison based by cluster of schools, non-Title I and Title I, that have attended at least one DAC meeting. So, for example, like I mentioned, the Henry cluster. So earlier, they had an overall 82% attendance rate, attending at least one meeting. But then when we see between Title I and non-Title I, let me see if this little pointer works. Doesn't show. So we see difference here. 88% of their Title I schools attended, but only 67% of their non-Title I schools. So again, you know, we see some areas for improvement there. I added these graphs because I couldn't show the previous graph in a descending order because there were 2 data points at once. So here we see descending order from greatest attendance to lowest attendance. On the left is Title I, and on the right is non-Title I. So what this data does, you know, data is as good as you know, it can be good and it can be not so good. It's how you use it. I feel like the more data points we have, the better story we can tell. So we're really trying to access data in a way that helps us tell the story of what we need to know to help support our DACs. And we don't know how to support them if they're not there. So to me, this is like kind of one of our primary things that we need to be looking at, how to get folks in the DAC meeting.
As always, we do want to make sure we're taking the feedback we get at these presentations to heart and really addressing them as a body. So we did want to share with you what our plans are this school year to address some of the concerns at our last presentation. Broadly, there were some specific questions, but the 2 main concerns were how we're communicating the work of SSCs, not only to SSC members, but the larger school community, and also ensuring that there is the recruitment and engagement from students with SSCs in the DAC. So the first way that we are going to address these concerns are developing stronger relationships with the area superintendents. Just last month, we had a fantastic, productive meeting with them, and we really look forward to engaging at the site level, partners that can improve engagement with the SSC. We also are going to be creating an SSC timeline this year. We created a DAC timeline that has clear objectives for every meeting throughout the entire school year, and we plan to do the same for an SSC. So this will include questions that SSC members should be asking, what documents should be reviewed before meetings, and also just throughout the year, different deadlines that they should be aware of. Additionally, as an executive committee, we are going to be attending cluster meetings to share more about the DAC and SSC and looking at them as a community partner to then share with who they know at school communities what they've learned. And as Tom had mentioned earlier, we are going to be starting an incentive program to increase attendance at our meetings to hopefully have 75% overall attendance and then also have each SSC present at least once this school year. We had mentioned earlier that we're really looking to express the why of our work on the DAC to students. We collected here some feedback from our body. I'm going to pause for a moment to allow people to read the direct quotes, but some of the general themes are giving back to the community, having a better understanding of the district and the specific school, and also being an active member of their child's education. So we do have some requests of the district, but as Tom will mention, they've largely been addressed. It's more of an update of what our continued partnership looks like. We do, of course, appreciate our monthly meetings with district leadership on our DAC priorities. Superintendent Jackson has been absolutely fantastic in addressing our concerns and also meeting with other district partners to improve our communication with site leadership. As mentioned, working with area superintendents to make sure there's strong connections at the school site level, and then also expanding our engagement in the development of the next iteration of the LCAP.
And Michael basically covered the blue, which was their request, and then the orange is the district response. And in a nutshell, we're going to support what they like us to support because we are in partnership with them and believe it's good work. So the meetings with Superintendent Jackson are continuing to be scheduled, and we're following up on those. Our staff in the SPSA department is working directly with principals. We've chosen certain schools for us to go and kind of sit side by side with them, actually run their SSC meetings, talk about the data they should be using, how that informs decisions around their funds. We're super excited in my department to have some shift in responsibilities to have the time to do that. And I've been participating too. I'm working with a couple of schools and I'm absolutely loving it. So, and then the last one was involvement in the LCAP. Of course, we're going to support any way that we can through the DAC process, that they have a voice in that process. So, okay. Sorry, I have the next one. Oh, it's our appreciation. So I'm not going to read all of this to you. You can see the names that are there. Crystal and Michael have already thanked each other, but also Ms. Gonzalez and Debbie Hedgren on the board. They are amazing. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. It's just I sit back sometimes and go, wow, how did we get so lucky? But they're going to continue the work, and we appreciate them very much. Obviously, all of our DAC and SSC representatives, we want to thank you all, the Board of Education and the Superintendent, for your support and all. We do feel the support as we move forward. Our district staff that comes and does presentations, we put Lynn Ryan on there, Pamela King. Obviously, our district translators, they go unnoticed sometimes, but we have translators that do these Zoom meetings a month in and month out. Actually, twice a month because we have executive meetings too. So appreciate our translators very much. And then staff in my department, specifically Laura Rubio, who's new to our department, but taking on a big support for the DAC. Also Stacy Johnson and Brandon Lemon, two of the resource teachers who do that lead. So thank you to everyone. It wouldn't be possible with all of your support. And I think now we have questions, correct?
And also, Tom, I want to thank you for all the work you do for us and help us in your partnership. So thank you. You couldn't thank yourself in your own slides. So.
There is one speaker on this item. It's a speaker.
Yes,
on
yes,
this.
I'm aware, yes. Yes, we have one speaker, Darlene Gonzalez. And Darlene, if you're here, can you come up to the microphone or the podium? She's, oh, I'm sorry, yes, it does say she's virtual, I apologize. Do we have Darlene with us?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Darlene. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Lamont. Hi, Marty. Hi, everybody. Hi, Crystal. And I felt the tears and my heart. Oh, my goodness. We do have an excellent team. I just wanted to say that my kids aren't feeling good and I stood home to be with them, but I'm gonna be just like I said with them. Me and Crystal are gonna still carry this torch with you guys in support for our principals and our superintendent. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Darlene. Okay, I'm going to turn over to trustees. Questions? Trustee Pedersen.
Just very quick, not so much a question. I know last time you came, we were nitpicking. I'm probably a nitpicker by nature about how do we get SSCs that are more broadly representative of the student and family community at our sites. I know how challenging it is. So sometimes we're up here and we give sort of impossible challenges. I just want to say, having attended a couple when I was on the SSC at Torrey Pines Elementary, you really have a meeting. Part of getting people to attend is having really high quality presentations and meetings. So I just want to acknowledge you have very high quality presentations, and it genuinely is a value added to attend the meetings. So I want to encourage all our families, go to a DAC. It's a well produced meeting. It's entertaining, it's informational. So I would encourage families to come. And I'm committing to come sometime in the next couple of months. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Pedersen. Trustee Lavender Williams.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to express what an amazing presentation. And I also want to say, great job, Michael, working with you as my fellow. I know firsthand the amazing work that you do for all the students in our district. I also heard that you're reaching out to principals when it comes to recruiting. I just was kind of wondering, would you be open to reaching out to other nonprofit organizations that are kind of student-led to expand on that student voice? Because as amazing as Michael is, like you said, he's a senior, and I think the student voice for this advocacy is so important, and I just want to kind of hear what your perspective was on recruiting plans.
Thank you so much for your question. Absolutely, I think utilizing student-led organizations with the district is a fantastic way to identify some candidates that could be more involved with SSCs. I think the reason that we're really focused on principals is because we know that good SSC members aren't necessarily students that are already engaged, who haven't had the opportunity to be engaged. So really identifying students that this is their first opportunity and that they haven't been exposed to those other possibilities. But I would love to stay in contact with you about how you envision those partnerships working. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Trustee Cotoriano? Go ahead.
Thank you. First, it's been an honor to know you, Michael. You've done amazing work. I'll just keep laying on the praises, no problem. I had two questions. First, I noticed that in most of these slides, you use the language engagement dash attendance. To me, they're two very different terms. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Great question. Thank you for that. So we kind of broke down engagement in a couple different areas. Engagement in terms of our meetings, making sure that they're value add, making sure that they're inclusive, making sure that they're productive and helpful. Engagement in terms of our resources, making sure that the resources are useful. Engagement with attendance, meaning that we actually have people there to engage with. Mm-hmm. Right. So they're kind of like sub-bullets of the actual engagement idea.
Awesome, thank you. And the other thing I wanted to add was that in this slide, when you talked about the why, I noticed a lot of them were informed parents, bettering education, equity in our schools. And you know, when I go back to when you talked about the purpose of the DAC, a lot of that is like, we want to help our most in-need students. And so what I'm wondering about these goals and what I'm seeing is that there is a lot of talk about attendance. And like, I run the Student Advisory Board. Blessed and I know attendance is so integral. Mm-hmm. But we also recognize that the goal of the DAC is not purely attendance. And so I know that the DAC is doing amazing work, and can you kind of speak a little bit, like, do you have the data that shows that the work that's actually happening is meaningfully affecting students' lives? I mean, back to this idea of student outcomes-based governance.
I love that question. That's an awesome question. So we, about a year or two ago, we tried this idea. It's called a repository of information, ROI. And so we were going to put those kinds of things in the ROI that would be accessible to all SSCs. What's working? How is it making an impact? What's not working? So we faced a couple little hurdles in getting that available, but I still have a dream that we will make this kind of centralized resource that SSCs can use to understand what's working at other school sites to impact the very students that they're on the SSCs to make decisions about. So I would love to maybe think about how to move that forward, if possible. But you're right. And so attendance, you're right. It's kind of a tricky area because we have data around attendance, but we don't have data to actually, we don't have the money behind collecting the data run after a DAC member after they leave our meeting and say, hey, did you actually use what we gave you at the DAC? It's kind of that, that longitudinal data that we just don't have access to. Maybe we can get a grant or something from a funder to do something like that. But yes, so attendance is one of those tricky things we have data for, but it doesn't necessarily explain the work that we do. But we do need people there in order to do our work. So it's like a chicken and the egg.
Can I just add something
Yeah,
real quick?
please do.
I appreciate the question also, and I tried very early on to share that it's not just about attendance. We believe that there will be some things that happen because people are attending, but anecdotally, you just notice the difference too. I mean, I think I've been involved in this now going on 6 years. It's hard to believe. But from where we were 4 or 5 or 6 years ago to where we are now, when the DAC comes together, people know what they're doing. They know what their focus are. They're staying in what we call the lane. They're not coming and talking about the colors of their school or when their buses are dropping off, and they're talking about what really is compensatory education. So we're feeling it. I don't think we have the data, as Crystal said, but there is a noticeable difference. So that's the best I can offer to that, too.
Trustee Hazen.
Oh, I apologize. Let me address this really quickly. This is a fantastic question, Matthew. We're all obviously excited about it. The 2 changes that I would like to point out to you is, as a DAC, we are starting to collect the data about how insightful and relevant information shared at our meetings is to SSC meetings. That is an important first connection because, yes, ultimately we are supposed to be supporting students, but we do that through our SSCs. So making sure we're supporting our SSCs is our first goal. And then after that, a lot of tracking of student success at an individual site is going to be included in the SBSA and how the SSC continues to review their SBSA.
So I think I really appreciate the question and what we just heard. I guess this question is really on my mind, and I think it's really, for me, about getting past these outputs, which are really meaningful. All of the process work you're doing is important, right? If people are not attending your meetings and getting the information, they can't be as effective on their SSCs. But I'm really curious about how is the DAC helping SSCs evaluate site data against SPSAs? And do DAC members feel like they are able to effectively do that? And so it would be great to have some goals specifically focused on that, right? To Trustee Cotoriano's point, if the goal is to effectively evaluate the use of Title I dollars to improve outcomes for priority populations, I want to know, how is the DAC helping to do that? And I heard a lot of great work that's happening, but would love to hear about sort of that next step, those outcomes, because it's not clear yet, which isn't to say great work isn't happening, but we're not seeing all of that.
Thank you, Vice President Hazen. I think that's a great point, and I would offer up an opportunity as we come together monthly, so we think about working with our district team to look at our SPSAs. Let's think about a couple of schools where we have DAC reps, who are interested in this, and maybe we can take a look at some schools, look at the data together, bring them in, and think about how we can identify that so that we are thinking about the outcomes where we'd like to see and how their partnership with the school site leaders are making a difference, and then work to replicate that. So I know we're not there yet, but as we started a couple of years ago, Tom, looking at these goals, perhaps now that we've increased attendance, now we can think about the impact. So moving from involvement to impact, I think is a great point. So let's talk about that next time we come together in the coming month.
Okay. No,
I would welcome that. And I've been wanting over the past couple of years some way to look at the SPSAs in aggregate, to really have some type of database where all of the SPSA goals and funding that's been allocated to achieve those goals, we can actually compare and look at over time. But currently, something like that doesn't exist. So that would be a really great thing that we could work on together. I know we would be all over that to create that database so that we can start to see. And then, for us as a DAC, we'd have to kind of really think about how do we stay in our lane in terms of providing resources, and how does that look moving into monitoring different school sites? That's kind of like, it's a little fuzzy in terms of our role, but I'd love to talk about how we can support that.
No, I think that's right, and we know that site principals take on that leadership role, and so we have to think about how we engage with them to see how we can be more meaningfully partnering with them.
Yeah.
So not just us in a vacuum.
I
Okay.
agree. I agree.
Let's talk more about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love
Thank
to.
you.
Love to.
Great idea.
Trustee Dr. Whitehurst-Payne.
I want to thank you for this because, as Tom knows, we've come a long ways, a long, long ways. And it's fascinating because at one point we were even talking about the meetings and could we hold the meeting and get enough people to even have a quorum to do that. And now we're at the point where, Michael, I really appreciate you being on the executive committee as a student. And for me, the question is, are there any other students even on the committee, much less on the executive committee? Because Trustee Lavender Williams said, okay, now how do we get to be on the DAC? And how many students actually know that there is an SSC? How many student representatives are there out there? And moving it right down the line to the point where you're talking about making an impact on student outcomes, I think we have to start looking at, somebody's question over here about how many folks are looking at the SPAs and the cluster and so forth. Well, I'll have you to know in the Lincoln cluster, we're there. We are looking at, in fact, kudos to Lincoln High School for making a presentation at our last meeting last month, where we looked at the SBAC data, and we were asking about the plans, the SPA, how do they match? Where are the data coming together here? So I would love to see that because I'm sure Blessing is not familiar with this part of it, but there are some other students at Lincoln who perhaps would like to get involved in doing doing this work to serve on the DAC and so forth. So we're pushing it down to say, students, these are opportunities for you to get involved at your site, at the district level, replace who's going to be his replacement next year, and how many other students are coming up the pathway and the pipeline to even know that this is out there. So I'd like to see it expand in that direction also. Thank you. Congratulations.
Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, I think we have an opportunity in front of us, and again, thank you, Crystal, Michael, and Tom. One of the things that I just think it's important for us to acknowledge is I think Dr. Whitehurst-Payne was referring to this. You go back a few years ago, and I don't think we were on the same page in terms of the goals around representation and participation, number one, but also the clarity around those goals being shared by both the members of the committee and the staff. And we saw that as well with our presentation from the CAC, just now. So the fact that, we talk about, we used to have one presentation from the DAC, one presentation from staff, and they weren't even on the same issues. So the fact that you've come together and clarified goals is so important. I think the opportunity in front of us is, we're going through a process as a board right now in identifying our long-term goals around student outcomes, and we want to hear from you, and we want to hear, from other key stakeholders, what's your, sense of what our long-term goals should be. So at an upcoming DAC meeting, where we've got the superintendent and area superintendents coming, maybe what we could do is just have that conversation that could influence our process. So really appreciate it. Michael, President Bazo has been asking this question of our other seniors here tonight. So what's your plans for next year?
Thank you very much. I applied early action to Princeton and hope to study public policy.
That's fantastic. Thank you. They'd be lucky to have you.
Thank you to all of you, and just a couple final comments, and congratulations, Michael, and you're going to do amazing wherever you end up going. And thank you to Crystal and Tom for your amazing hard work. As Trustee Barrera mentioned, and I coordinate a lot of meetings in my other job, and so I know how all the hard work that goes into it behind the scenes, and people don't always realize. So I appreciate all the effort, and also the coming together comprehensively. That's not an easy feat. So, so amazing job there. And also, Tom, I wanted to give you a shout out for, as far as some of the schools being Title I or not being Title I, depending on the month or the year. And, some of my schools fall into that category, but I think a lot of times the parents don't realize, even what Title I is. Even if they are a Title I school, a lot of times I don't think there's that awareness of what that even means, particularly for schools that are maybe more wavering in and out of that percentage. So I appreciate that we're trying to include all of those schools, because I think it's important for them to have that information. A lot of schools do, or more and more, I think, of our schools are falling into that category. So I think it's important that they're all represented. I just had one final question about representatives. So just from my experience as a parent, I do know, there's a lady, she's a lovely person, but she's probably been a DAC rep for, before my kids even started, and they're in their 20s now. So she's probably been a DAC rep for 25, 30 years at several schools in some of the areas. So just wondering if there's any thought around, love her to death, but is there thought around trying to make sure that we're, having new people come in, circulating the new people, so we do have parents of current students or, that kind of thing. So not sure if anything's being done around that.
Thank you for your question. Absolutely. It is so important to have new ideas and new perspectives on the DAC. As a body, we do not choose our representatives. They are selected at the SSC level. So as we continue to develop the relationships with site leadership to identify new student participants, that is definitely something to keep in mind. Of students are an important part of SSCs, but they're not the only part of SSCs, and making sure that there are new perspectives and new voices at the site level is super important. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Oh.
I want to say, too, there's an opportunity maybe to have them kind of share their knowledge, because they have a lot of institutional knowledge that is helpful. So if we could think of creative ways to have them still be engaged, but maybe move over so that somebody else can serve in that official capacity, that would be something we can, kind of brainstorm and think of ways to honor long-term SSC members. But maybe make room
you don't
for
want to
others.
lose the ones that are loyal and committed. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you to Crystal, Tom, and Michael for being here tonight. Okay, now we will consider agenda section F, G, H, and I. So staff have removed items I-5 from consideration. Do I have a motion for sections F, G, H, and I? Motion approved by Trustee Pedersen. Do we have a second? By Trustee Whitehurst Payne. Okay. And let's go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any speakers, I don't think, on that one, do we? Okay, good. Oh, I'm sorry, did you have a question about any of them? Okay. Trustee Hazen.
Thank you. Just a quick comment, because I think it's noteworthy, and we're adopting a lot of things right now, but G1, which is the adoption of student outcomes focused governance, our implementation timeline. This is a lot of work that's been happening behind the scenes by this board, hours and hours, and many, many staff members. So it may seem like 1 out of 100 items here, but it's really noteworthy and important, and I'm personally very excited about the work we have started and will continue doing to really refine our focus on specific goals and outcomes to ensure students are succeeding.
Yes, thank you so much for pointing that out, Trustee Hazen. I'm excited as well. Okay, let's start with we'll do Trustee Couturiano first.
Aye.
Trustee
Aye.
Lavender Williams. Okay, everyone else, please vote electronically. Okay, and the motion passes unanimously with our student board members concurring. All right. So we are now at our non-agenda public testimony section. We will have public testimony on non-agenda items. We have received many requests for non-agenda testimony this evening. Normally, the bylaws do limit us to non-agenda testimony to a maximum of 30 minutes. However, due to the large number of requests, we will allow each speaker 1 minute only, to hear from all speakers. I think we have over 90 speakers signed up right now between in-person and online. If you have any prepared remarks that are longer than 1 minute, please submit them to board@sandy.net. As a point of clarification, the Board of Education does not appoint and does not remove members of the DLAC board. So removal of officers is a function of the DLAC itself. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start. So I'm going to call 10 people at a time. I'd like you to just all come up, please. And if you're not ready, we're going to go to the next person because we just have a lot of people. And so we need you to be kind of paying attention if you're on the list and ready to go. So, okay, whoops. Let's see if I can get to my list. Okay, we're going to start with Raquel Espejo, Minyi Zhu, Balbina Guerrero, Marco Luna, Humara Yusufi, Mark Caban, Ray Glasgow, Sarah, no last name, Archie Berg, and Alan Chornek. So any of you can start, and you're each going to have 1 minute each, please.
Good evening, dear members of the Board of Education. I have a petition letter from Barnard Families. May I give this to you?
Our board services person, thank you.
I'm going to try to be quick. It saddens me to know that Barnard is only one of many schools that lost a teacher due to low enrollment, lack of funding, and Third Friday results this year. Even though I would like to help each and every one of them, I am here today advocating and representing mine. Barnard Mandarin Magnet Elementary is the only Mandarin immersion school in San Diego County that offers a complete standard-based Mandarin language immersion curriculum from kindergarten through 5th grade. Anyone who knows Barnard knows how important our teachers are in our school for the academic success of our children. Our teachers are the heart and soul of our Mandarin immersion program, and losing one of our teachers is like losing a part of our children's education. I have read many times, time and time again, that the district is committed to each and every one of our students. Please bring Xi and Juan, our teacher, back. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Board of Trustees, I stand before you today not just as an advocate for students of Barnard Elementary, but as a voice for their academic future. The decision to discontinue the full-time equivalent position in our Mandarin immersion program has inadvertently placed a hurdle in the path of our students' educational journey. I implore you to reconsider the decision, not just for the sake of our program, but for the fundamental mission we hold dear, improving student achievement through unwavering support of their teaching and learning in our classrooms. At Barnard Elementary, the full immersion Mandarin program is more than just a curriculum. It's a gateway to a global perspective, an opportunity for our students to excel not just academically, but in the increasingly interconnected world. In conclusion, I urge the board to reflect on the core values we uphold. Reinstate the FTE within the Mandarin immersion program is not just a reinstatement of a position. It's an investment in the future and our affirmation of dedication to student achievement.
Thank you. Okay. Please come forward if you're next. Okay.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you guys. Omer Bartov, an Israeli expert on the Holocaust, has said 4 days ago that what we're seeing in Gaza is ethnic cleansing, and he's warning about a genocide. Everyone in this room has been having so much heartache for the past month. It's been a very difficult time. Now, conflating anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism is a dangerous game to play. It is untrue. We have organizations within the district like the ADL that push this definition, and so it makes it confusing. But I guarantee you that everyone in this room loves Jewish brothers and sisters, just as we love Palestinians. Now, Alani, who is a member of DLAC, I was at that meeting. She was undemocratically taken off. It was not in line with the Brown Act. It was not in line with democracy in general. So I know that you don't run the committee, but we implore you to look into it at the minimum. This is about the moral integrity, the minimum moral integrity.
Thank you.
That all human lives
We need to
are
move
valuable.
on.
Thank you. I'm going to finish.
Thank you.
I'm
No,
gonna
you're not
finish.
going to finish. You
All
need to move on to the
human
next
life
person.
is valuable.
Okay, we're going to cut off your mic if you don't stop. Thank you.
I'm going to be continuing that man's message. I urge this board to use their influence to reinstate Ms. Alali immediately. My name is Arshi Baig, and I work at the Federal Defenders of San Diego, representing members of our community, this community, who have federal allegations against them and cannot afford their own attorney. Many immigrants have similar stories. We came to San Diego to make this community better. In a single month, Israel has murdered over 11,000 civilians, people like you and me and the kids in this district. This district's actions are teaching our students that they can be brown, they can be immigrants, as long as they're quiet. Use your influence. Reinstate Ms. Alali.
My name is Hamaira Yusufi. I'm with the Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, PANA. We're a local organization that works with immigrant and refugee communities. We have relied on Lalia's expertise for over a decade to help with newcomer families when they have issues. She is our liaison to San Diego Unified. She is our expert, and we demand that she be reinstated to her position at DLAC, because you know what? She represents all of our communities. There's so many that are not here, and without her voice on the DLAC and without her advising you all, we no longer have a representative, and we need that for our communities. Our communities right now have no voice, and we're hurting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We are going to proceed with our next 10. Please come down and pay attention when I call your name, please. Rama Awad, Irina Sherbeck, Sarah Parker, Dalia Astalos, Lily Higman, Linda Williams, Arwa Hawaja, and Karen Sklar, Lisa Berman Hernandez, and Kimberly Grandy. And go ahead and start with our first speaker with that group.
Good evening. My name is Rama Awad, and I serve as the director of Majdal, the Arab Community Center of San Diego, and I'm also here on behalf of the San Diego for Palestine Coalition. Over the past week, we've mobilized a petition with 2,000 signatures. We've sent over 4,000 emails, and I don't believe we've received a response from you. We understand that you don't directly make decisions, but you are in a position of power to reinstate Ms. Lalia Alali, and so that's what we're here today to ask you to do. We would love to hear from members of the board to comment on this issue. We believe it was shameful and quite ironic that DLAC, which is a committee that is dedicated to creating an equitable and welcoming environment for newcomer students, is silencing her and silencing the communities that this committee seeks to serve. And as someone who works with Muslim, Arab, and new refugee students on a daily basis, I can attest to Ms. Alali's tireless commitment to our students. Thank you. So please, we'd love to hear from you tonight because we have not heard a response.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Irina, and as a parent, I would like to thank DLAC and San Diego Unified School District Board of Education for making the right decision to remove former DLAC chair Laila Alali. Ms. Alali clearly violated multiple education codes and regulations, along with violating San Diego Unified School own district policy with her unprofessional and discriminatory social posts and comments. Ms. Alali's conduct is unethical and unprofessional. Ms. Alali promotes hate and division in the community, which is harmful to children's education and development. Thank you again for your decision on removal of Ms. Alali's, and I wanted to let you know that there are others like me who support this decision.
Good evening. I'm a graduate of San Diego Unified. My kids are 7 and 8, and they're both in San Diego Unified. And they're the only Jewish kids in their class in their 1st grade and 3rd grade. For the past month, they've been fielding questions and hatred and ignorance. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for keeping hate out of our schools and for passing the resolution against anti-Semitism.
I'm going to ask everyone to keep your voices down or you'll be removed. Go ahead, sorry.
And for passing the resolution against anti-Semitism. It safeguards my children and all students. Thank you for taking decisive action when someone posted inappropriate messaging on the internet about babies, about any race or national origin or religion. That is not appropriate. If I had done that, there would not be a hearing. Messages of peace, tolerance, and love should be upheld as truths, and thank you for doing so.
Good evening, Linda K. Williams, and it's wonderful seeing a number of familiar faces here. And I am here to speak about our restorative district. Or are we a restorative district? Are we just talking the talk, or are we walking the walk? I have known my dear friend Lali Alali for 12 years and worked with her on many projects where she tirelessly has championed children who were in need of any level of unmet needs. I am absolutely astonished that there was no restorative measures taken. Communication, seeking harmony, seeking understanding. The things that we tell our students are important. And I am simply here to implore that we practice what we preach. Get some restorative justice going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lily Hickman, and I have one student who graduated from Mission Bay High School and 2 current students at Mission Bay High School. And here's a quote directly from our website, from the San Diego Unified website. Our #1 priority continues to be keeping students, staff, and families safe, healthy, and able to attend class every day. The majority of our students at our high schools and even in the middle schools now are athletes. And the fact that our athletic trainers are not employees of the district is pretty amazing to me. They're hired by an outside contractor who does not follow employment right acts, and they're based in Arizona in addition to everything else. This means that there's no district oversight for these positions. And the Arizona-based contractor was actually sued in 2022 for having illegal labor practices. So I'll send you more information on it, but
Thank
our
you.
athletic trainers are really important
Thank
to
you.
us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arwa Al-Khawaja, and here I am to say I want to reinstate Lali Alali to her position because I am simply wondering for the people who are supporting that, what are they supporting? Are they supporting silencing the voices of the people who are condemning murdering and the genocide of children? Are they supporting that? We as Muslims, we as Palestinians, and I am a Palestinian origin, we support protecting all lives. Not if it's a Palestinian life, it's not worth anything. And we cannot hear people who are condemning that. Lalia, just as a private citizen, she just expressed her right, her freedom of expression on her own personal Facebook. She actually, from me knowing her for more than 10 years, she did her best to protect the children, no matter what their background is, what color, what religion, anything. She wanted to protect the children genuinely and sincerely, and she was a volunteer doing that. So what we want is for you to take this issue of Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian issue in your hands.
Thank you.
Hello,
My name is Karen Sklar. I have a son who's a freshman in the school district. We are here today to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the San Diego Unified School District and DLAC for the responsible vote to dismiss Lalia Alali from the Community Advisory Board and Community Voices Project for her violation of the bylaws and guidelines. Despite much public opposition, please know with confidence you did the right thing. There should be no doubt about this. While I think it's incredibly obvious, I'm not here today to argue about exactly what defines anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, but at the very deep core of this, it is beyond clear that Alalia's public display of vile propaganda represents a matter of direct and specific hatred, with a capital H, plain and simple. Democratic rules and bylaws are meant for a reason. Our words and actions matter, and our words and actions have consequences. When one decides to break those rules, yes, perhaps they believe they are exercising their freedom of speech, but when freedom of speech crosses over the line to incite violence...
Thank you. I will
also
take care of this. I
expected
don't need extra comments from the
There are
group.
also expected
Thank you.
consequences to those actions.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Berman Hernandez. I'm a former public defender. I'm a current attorney here in San Diego doing workers' compensation. The ACLU predicted this kind of situation. They gave a guide as to what to do in these situations. The First Amendment does not protect this kind of speech. This is speech to incite violence. There's a case law directly on point in Crawford versus Commission on Professional Competence of Jurupa Unified School District that addresses just this situation. Similar facts, similar situation. When a public figure, such as a teacher, has a social media platform, they know that it will be accessed by others. There's no such thing as private social media anymore. Everybody can access anything. This is not protected First Amendment free speech, and she chose a vitriolic cartoon, a cartoon showing the beheading of babies. No other cartoon. There are millions of other cartoons that could have been brought up in order to support her position. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call up 10 more people. Please come up and just in whatever order. We have Yara Seiler, Christina Griffin-Jones, Alexa Greenland, Lucky Aiden, Fawzwa Farah, Fashia Farah, Selma Hassan, M.P. Edelson, Fatila, no last name, Shakria Osman. And I just want to remind everyone that we need the audience to keep your comments to yourself or you will be removed from the auditorium. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Superintendent Jackson and SDUSD Board. I'm here as a member of the Jewish community, and I'm also here as the granddaughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. I'm here to speak about keeping our schools inclusive and ensuring that our students are not exposed to anti-Semitism when they go to school. It's a scary time to be Jewish right now. Many of us are asking ourselves questions we never thought we would have to ask. We're afraid to have mezuzahs hanging outside of our house. We're afraid to wear Star of David on our necklace, on our necks. We're afraid to send our kids to school, and honestly, I'm afraid to speak here. There have been increasing anti-Semitic incidents in the community, including in our schools. And spreading anti-Semitic propaganda and misinformation is dangerous. It incites hatred. It puts our students at risk, and it also puts in jeopardy our shared values of inclusivity and diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the tough choice.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christina Griffin-Jones. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am here to demand that Chair Lalia Alali be reinstated as chair of the District English Learner Advisory Committee immediately. Chair Alalia did nothing wrong. She shared about the genocide that is happening in Palestine on her Facebook page and modeled what we all, especially folks who live here in the U.S. and pay taxes, should be doing in this time where our dollars continue to fund the genocide. to so many schools of children who can't go to school, and funding of the killing of our Palestinian siblings. Removing her as chair is bullying and communicates to Palestinian families, students, educators, community members here in San Diego that in a time when they need us the most, we are going to ignore their pain and turn our backs on them. I demand that you all make the right decision and show Black, Muslim, Palestinian, and oppressed students in times when they need support the most, that we support them. And we reinstate Chair Aliyah.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shukriya Osman. I am a San Diego Unified School District alumni, and I, along with a large portion of my community, are here today to urge the Board of Education to address the Islamophobic and racist removal of Ms. Laleh Alali from her position as chair of DLAC and call for her to be reinstated to her position. What kind of example are you setting, sorry, I don't know, can you still hear me? What kind of example are you setting for kids in the district when one can't speak up for people who are oppressed? It is important to protect her freedom of speech and stand with her. She has a voice for students like me who are hijabis at predominantly white institutions, as we continuously lack the representation we deserve in these spaces. If we want to talk about support, okay. If we want to talk about support of students, you are failing to reach those goals. In April 2017, SDUSD board voted unanimously to confront Islamophobia and bullying against Muslim students. However, we are yet to see you all fulfill that commitment. Our community is here today to stand with Ms. Alali, and your responsibility is to hear the community and listen to our concerns. I hope that you fulfill the responsibility and commit to what it is that you stand for.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lucky Aiden. I, along with others in this room, are here to speak on the Islamophobic and racist removal of Ms. Laleh as chair of DLAC that happened on November 7th over a personal post on her Facebook page. When is exercising your First Amendment rights of speech a crime? What is the message you're sending to the thousands of Muslim students who attend your schools? The message here is, if you're Muslim and you attend any school in the San Diego Unified District, you have no right to speak on things that impact you. How can we entrust our siblings to attend your schools, especially with the heightened of Islamophobia in the world today? Reinstate Ms. Laleh as chair of DLAC and let the thousands of students, Muslim students, who attend your schools, that you support and stand with them at this time. Thank you.
Good evening. The DLAC meeting and its decision on November 6th set a troubling precedent, where community leaders like Laleh can be dismissed without regard for community voice. As a San Diego Unified School District alumni, we refuse to tolerate these Islamophobic actions aimed at a community leader who has dedicated over a decade to creating an inclusive environment for students of color, English learner students, immigrant students, and their parents within the district. As some of you may know, Laleh loves plants, and she has a green thumb. But she isn't just a grassroots organizer. She has prepped and nourished the very soil that gives the roots for our community to grow. Because of her work, we thrive, and because of her work, we flourish. The most beautiful thing Laleh has grown are not the countless plants that are draped over her house, but she has played an integral role in the growth of nearly every seedling who has come through your district. Her name will go down in history books as a force of justice and equity in San Diego. And I urge you, the board, to join her in that status by reinstating her in her position and resetting the precedent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am a leader of a school in which our motto is respect makes a world of difference, which is the reason that I'm here. A leader in the San Diego community and our neighbor incited intense concern from many members of our community. When we first moved in, I opened my home to that same individual for a collaborative dinner, and shortly after, when anti-Semitism, gun violence shook Pittsburgh, her husband reached out to me in collaboration with another community leader. This is what we do as leaders. We extend compassion and lead with respect. We must work together as leaders to ensure that we do not let terror seep into our communities. We should be united together against terror. This is not a community in which any leader should be inciting fear towards others, but rather extending our hands to support each other. I want to extend my servitude to you as a board in any way that I can be of service. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to work collaboratively with whoever I can to ensure that every child is supported and that to help ensure that San Diego is free from anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all forms of intolerance and racism. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is M. Peter Edelson, and I want to thank the board for opening us up. I stand in support of you letting go of Leila Alali and her post, "The Devil is Killing," portraying Israel as the killer of babies on social media. This is propagating radical Islam and promoting maiming, murder, and mutilation of Jews. Her
Excuse
firing
me.
should be upheld. This is a matter for accountability. This is not about Palestinian rights. It is about violence against the Jewish people by Hamas and must be stopped now. Anti-Semitism remains an ugly and persistent form of prejudice that continues to do great harm in our world. We must always remember the lessons of the past, and attack against any minority group threatens the safety and dignity of us all. The only path forward is to embrace our shared humanity. The board's task is to bring light into this world, not add to this darkness. Your letting go of Alalia has provided light in this world.
Thank you. Okay, next. Okay. I'm going to shut down this meeting if we can't be up under control. You all need to keep your comments to yourself or we will stop the meeting. Next 10 people, we have Da, Moy Mizraki, Arwa Al-Kahauja, Jose Aldec, Albira Warsi, Janine Erikat, Yasmin Elamazan, Muna Ikal, Marquetta, and Zenith Khan, in whatever order you'd like to go.
I want to thank the board for having this open space. I'm personally, my background is come from exactly that land. My great-grandparents came from there, and they have been in that land for millennia. They did not migrate there anywhere. They are from there. So I can tell you firsthand that the problem in that area needs to be solved by people empowering the voice of moderation, not the voices of extremism. Voices of extremism on both sides are wrong, and voices of extremism are not going to lead us to help that region that is in conflict right now. And we're going to have to think about the future of our kids when they grow up, if they're going to be able to make peace in that land. So any type of extremism should not be exalted. It should be lower the volume of that voice. So I think you did good in doing that, and empowering the moderate is what is our job. And as an educator, this is the best thing you can do.
Thank you.
I want to congratulate the board for the hard work you do. My children live in fear these days. It's not easy being a Jew these days. We have overwhelming voices that want to quiet us down and want to accuse us of crimes that we are not committing. The fact that public